Hey, Mike, it's great to have you on the Zoom call with us. We did an interview the other night, and I just think you're going to be such an inspiration for a lot of missionaries because, you're going to give us a different twist or a different look on doing work in a foreign land for the gospel of Jesus Christ. But you use the angle of business. So, I just wanted to share with everybody, you have the Spanish Institute of Honduras, and then you have Pozos para Todos. That's a well drilling business. So these are actually businesses. These are not like ministries, but these are businesses. But if you don't mind, Mike, just share a little bit about you and your family. You're in Sihuatepeque, right?
Yeah, Sean. So yeah, it's really good to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about what you're doing and glad to be a part of it. So just in a nutshell, we came down to Honduras, me and my family. For the first time in 2012, we came down for 2 months, went to language school, the language school that we now own. And then we went home and decided we wanted to come back for another 6 months in 2013. And that when we drove down through Mexico, Guatemala, got down here, and we never went home.
Yeah.
So people say, well, how did you end up down here? And I always say, we just kind of wandered down here. And after 6 months, we came down here with a time frame of about 6 months, maybe a year. And we just decided we felt like God was using us here, and we stayed. Yeah. So yeah, and so my three boys were in their teens when they came down here, and they're all three of them are still here. One of them is now married. We're expecting a grandbaby, and
awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, we didn't talk about this in the actual initial interview. What did you do in the States prior to coming down here? Were you a business owner then?
I was in trucking all my life.
Okay.
That was my dream job from 3 years old on. And
wow,
it's still my passion. I love trucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so, okay. So then the language school, you just basically said how you got involved in that. You went to the school, you thought, hey, why don't we just buy this school? And then how did you get into well drilling?
Okay, well, so just a little clarification. When we came back down the second time, I started running the language school. It was a little startup that another missionary had done, and he kind of lost interest in it, was busy with other stuff. So I started running it, and it started growing. And one day, after we decided to stay, and we can have this part of the conversation a little bit later, where basically we decided how we were going to support ourselves, right? But basically, the missionary came to me and just said, "Hey, I want to give the school to you." So yeah, so we were actually given the school, and it just consisted of what we had as far as the teachers and everything, and a little bit of used furniture. But for us, it was really a huge gift to get us started on the road of supporting ourselves here in Honduras through business.
Yes. And, again, I just want everybody to understand, and you definitely made sure that you clarify with me, these are businesses. These are, like you said, you've never received any support from any ministries or anything like that. Basically, you use businesses to sustain yourselves in the country. And then obviously you guys do work as meaning ministry work as you come across that ministry work while you're here. Am I correct?
Correct, Sean. Yeah, we never came down here with the idea of being supported missionaries because we were coming down for a limited amount of time. We just came down on some savings that we had. And when we stayed, I just felt like God said, go into business. And like I said, the language school was the first indication that that was possible. Now, you asked about the well drilling. So we had been looking for something else to do. My boys came to me. The two younger boys, they were, I think, 16 and 17. They said, "Dad, we like it here in Honduras. We'd like to stay here with you, but we need work." Okay. And so we began to put our heads together. We'd had a little bit of experience with a tiny well drilling rig here, and had found it to be challenging. But the machine was just too small to do much of anything. But we began to look at well drilling because we saw that there was a need for clean water, for wells, and it was also an area that was easily merged into ministry.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so, at home, if I wanted to buy a piece of equipment, I just call my bank and they'd send 100,000 over, whatever. But down here, it's a lot more complicated. I would have a hard time going to a bank and getting in a loan, and interest rates are very high here.
Yeah.
I can't borrow in the US. So what I ended up having to do was look for investors, which has actually been a very interesting process. And so what we do is we look for people who believed in us and were willing to risk lending us money to actually buy the equipment that we needed. And so we've done that about 3 different times. And each time we've upgraded our equipment. And so that's how we got into well drilling.
Okay. Okay. Now, you know what the reason why, because Mike revealed to me, hey, look, these are businesses. I don't even know if you want to do this interview. And I'm like, no, this sounds awesome, because just like you're saying, this isn't for everybody. One thing that you're saying, and you said to me, Sean, this is not for everybody, as far as missionaries to be in business. And you said something very interesting. You said that you can't approach business from a mission perspective, and you were very cautious, because if you are wanting to do business as a missionary, you better focus on the business. Can you share a little bit about your heart about that, and the warning that you would give any missionary thinking about trying to do business and support mission work?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking that question, because that is really something that is important to me to express. And Sean, you said it also, this is not for everybody. Okay. That's between you and God. If I feel very strongly that God told me to go into business. Okay. And so I'm comfortable with that. And I'm sorry, Sean, what was the question that you wanted to ask?
Said you can't approach business from a mission perspective. You got to run it like a business. And
correct.
That's the point you were stressing. And then you also said that, it's not for all.
Yes.
You have to seriously consider this, because you have to, did God tell you to do this, or are you doing this because you're not funding yourself properly? So now you think business is going to be the answer for it. But then you're trying to run a mission organization at the same time, basically doing a hobby.
Right. Exactly right. Okay. So the question about the business, because there's kind of like a buzzword out right now. It's called business as missions, right? And what I see most missionaries doing that are trying to do business, they do it missions as business, okay? Where they put the missions aspect first and the business comes in second place. In my opinion, it rarely works. Okay. If you want to do business, you have to focus on business and then do what I say, which is then weave missions through that.
Yes.
Okay. So if the business is not self-sustaining, if it's not making a profit, then it's not going to last.
Yeah.
So businesses, wherever you are in the world, they have to be focused on and run from a business perspective. Then what you choose to do with the profits is, you want to spend it on your missions program? Great. You want to just use it to support yourself? Great. But the idea basically comes down to the fact that if you don't run a business well, it will fail. And so it doesn't achieve its purpose. Right. So it's not really about placing business above missions. It's not about that at all. It's about, if business fails, then it didn't achieve its purpose.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And so that's the way you have to look at it.
I mean, you and I talked about this. I used to own a construction company in the States. And, I've always kind of said, hey, look, just because you're a great framer, you can swing a hammer, doesn't mean that you should be running a business. You might be a great subcontractor, meaning you work for maybe 1 or 2 general contractors, but to go out and run a business, maybe that's not your skill. And you need to kind of, step back and kind of accept that. So, and I even share with you, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I love business. I've been involved in business since 1993, but I've recognized as a missionary, I'm a missionary. And see, I could not run a business, and I have to accept that, so, like, again, we talked about support. If you feel like maybe using a business to support the mission work that you want to be involved in, that's a great approach. But again, like you said, you got to put everything in proper perspective. And like me, I tried that. And finally, I just threw my hands up and said, I'm done. I'm focusing on mission work. I'm chasing after this. That's my full time. I don't want to think about, business, so it's, we're talking about on both sides of the line here. And, there are people that maybe this might be the perfect fit for them, and maybe they felt guilty, of thinking maybe I should do business, but they feel guilty, but they won't do it because they feel guilty, but
Right.
you have the surety in your heart that no, God told us to do this, and you're at perfect comfort, and also at the same time, you're supporting missionaries through the language school. And then, like you said, you get involved in some projects as far as well drilling as well.
Yeah. So, Sean, I want to applaud you honestly on being willing to not do business, because if you have an entrepreneurial spirit in you, that's something that I know gives you satisfaction and joy in doing that, because that's part of your strengths. The fact that you're willing to kind of give that up and say, no, I'm going to focus on missions is to be applauded, because I'm telling you, if I love business. And if God said, give up business, Mike, I would have a hard time with it, because it's a passion that I have, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like anything, even missions work can become that way. It's really, really easy to just become so focused on business that you lose sight of of anything except business. I came to Honduras to slow down and relax, and within about 3 months, I was back up and as busy as I was in the U.S. So that's always going to be a challenge. So let me talk about just a minute about someone who may have never considered the fact that they could be a business owner and be in missions. I've had a number of people when I've spoken at churches that have come up to me and said, Mike, I'm a business guy, and I never thought that I could possibly be a missionary and be a business guy. Thank you for opening our eyes to that. Okay. Sean, you and I spoke about that there are countries that don't allow you to come in as a missionary. We all know that a lot of people that do go into those countries, they go in as either a doctor or maybe a teacher. But business owners have open doors to many countries where missionaries are shut out.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know if you're still going to use that title, but it was something about thinking outside of the box, missions, business, thinking outside the box. When I think of business and supporting yourself or and doing business in a foreign country, I do think of that a little bit as thinking outside of the box of normal missions support and work.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned about the other countries. We did an interview with a missionary. We actually had to blur his face, and we could not use his name. And that's exactly what they did. They went to the foreign country and they opened up a restaurant. And so they had a flourishing restaurant in this country, and then they were using that as an opportunity to minister to the staff that they hired.
Right.
And then they were bringing them to Jesus Christ. And then, just kind of like how things spinned off for you, they got into rescuing young ladies in sex trafficking. So now they're saving these women in sex trafficking. They even closed down, helped one guy that was the brothel owner. He came to Christ. They shut that brothel down, and now he's serving in the ministry. So it's really awesome. Like you said, people might say, well, I want to be a missionary here, but it's closed to us. We can't go do our work. And like you're saying, you could look at it and say, well, what business could we do? Or could we be teachers or whatever, and use that angle to do your mission work?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I really like when we came down here, one of the things I started doing, and I found out that I wasn't any good at it. I'm too soft-hearted. But we started doing microloans, microlending. Okay. I wanted to help people here, mostly men. We did make a few loans to women, actually start their own small businesses. Because, Sean, as you're well aware, there's a tremendous outflow of Honduran men, particularly to the United States illegally. And the only reason they go is because they want to work, right?
Yeah.
And jobs down here, it's not that jobs aren't available, but they don't pay a whole lot, and it's hard to support your family and everything. And can you excuse me just a minute?
Sure.
This cat. Sorry about that. Our cat has the loudest meow that I've ever heard. And he wanted to come in. Okay, so anyhow, one of our passions was bringing work. And so I found that if you want to do micro lending, which is another, I think, a great thing to do, it's very complicated. You have to be willing to spend time with people and really force them to make their payments back, because you want to teach them good business habits, right? But I didn't do very well at that. But my passion for bringing jobs to Honduras remains. So we have, I would say that we have probably 15 employees.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we probably support like on a second tier, probably another 15 people. So that would be like, we don't hire a guard directly, but we share him with our neighbor, and so we pay his half of his salary. We have 100 families that receive our students. They live with them, and so they get paid for that. So we're bringing into the economy probably 30 jobs.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's 30 jobs. That's 30 jobs that wasn't here before we came.
Exactly. Now, in the well drilling, is it, because I was obviously had the privy to see your well drilling business in action, and
Yeah.
I saw your sons. I don't remember, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, because you have a store now too.
We do actually, Sean. I have 5 businesses.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
You came to Honduras to relax. What's going on here? How old are you?
I'm 57.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still got a lot in you.
My boys told me the other day, Dad, no more businesses, because I see opportunity here all the time. I do want to mention, while I think about it, I do some counseling for basically, like, if a missionary is interested in going into business, I am happy to sit down pro bono and just kind of work through the ideas and kind of help them with that. Okay. That's why I like that. I think that I have a gift for seeing opportunities and also kind of getting a sense of whether or not something is going to work. So that is one thing that I do. I like to do that. As far as the well drilling, my son Ben is now running the well drilling business, and we have one guy that works for him, and we may have to hire another one. Thomas was working with him as well. He's doing more of the pump installs for me. Now he may be headed back to the States. He is got a fiance that is going to school up there.
Okay.
But Mark runs the Spanish Institute, and he and Gabby they're the ones that are expecting our first grandchild.
Okay. Congratulations on that.
Yeah. So we've kind of made it a family business. One of the things that I noticed right from the beginning, my kids are very important to me. They grew up in the truck with me. The boys one of them was always with me, traveling around the country in the tractor trailer. And so I'm used to having them with me. I consider them my best friends. And I noticed that missionaries, almost everybody that's here, their children would grow up and to the college age, and they would leave.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what happens, right? Kids have to start their own life. They go back to college or whatever. But one of the reasons that they leave is because they don't really have an opportunity that was presented them to stay here.
Yeah.
And I saw that. So when my boys came to me and they said, Dad, we want to stay here, but we want work, I'm like, let's do it. Let's find something.
Cool.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Well, just on that note, and then what I see happening, Sean, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. I would probably do the same thing. But a year or two after the kids grow up and leave, the parents usually follow. They leave the mission field. They leave the mission field, and they go back because they want to be with their kids and their grandkids and all of that. Really good reasons to leave. But I often wonder what would happen if the kids just stayed and made a life.
Sure. And I caught something that you said that I like. You said that you see opportunity in Honduras, and
Everyone.
I'm not, we're not going to bust out on the culture of Honduras, but here you are, you see opportunity. It's interesting, your mindset versus another individual's mindset. They say there's no work, there's no opportunity, and you say no, there is opportunity.
Yeah.
Share about that if you don't mind.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Gallup Strength Finders 2.0. It's a it's a strengths test. For me, I would say that between Jesus Christ and Strength Finders 2.0, it changed my life. But someone came down here to Honduras that was a Strength Finders coach through the Honduran Fellowship, and they gave us a free seminar. And it didn't really sink in immediately. But what I began to realize is that God actually makes us in the way that He wants us, right? And those strengths typically He created in us, and He wants us to use those. And so one of my strengths is actually ideas and strategic thinking, right? And so with those strengths, I begin to realize that all of these ideas that I have, all of these opportunities that I see, it comes out of the strengths that God created in me.
Amen.
All right. Yeah. Amen to that. Right. And so what I realized is that rather than trying to squash those, that I needed to begin to use those. Now, it's like anything with any strength. If it gets out of control, you can bust things. But as I begin to live in those strengths, and that's a phrase that they use in the Strength Finders workshop, I realized that it was exciting. So for me to see these opportunities is something that just comes naturally. To me because of my strengths, right? And so people can say, well, how do you see these? I said, well, that's because that's the way God made me. So I have also helped people who say, Mike, I would like to start a business, but I don't know what to do. And I'll say, well, and I'll sit down with them and I'll say, all right, so tell me about yourself. What are your interests? What are the things? What are your passions? And then we start looking at things that could possibly work for them. And so opportunities, I just see them, right?
Well, when you're sharing that with me, I'm just thinking of the parable of the talents. I mean, you're clearly, Jesus is going to say, "Thou good and faithful servant." You've taken these talents I gave you, you've multiplied them. Is what I wanted you to do. You didn't, you didn't cower and go, well, I feel in my heart I want to do business, but I don't think that that's right because I feel like I'm supposed to be a missionary, so. I'm going to ignore this and I'm going to try to pursue being a missionary. All along, God's saying, no, you're going to go in business and do missions.
Right.
You ignore it, and then you get your feelings hurt and go back home.
Right.
But you allow God to guide you and lead you through the process. And I mean, today, your family's prospering, your kids are prospering. They want to stay in Honduras, continue the work. I mean, it's just incredible to see how God is just, blessing your family and blessing the work that you're doing there here in Honduras.
We're fortunate. We really are.
Amen. Now, one other thing, you were saying that you were actually in connection with the Honduran government, meaning you were consulting them or something. By my memory in our interview, you were sharing with them some things about being a little bit more free and allowing residents and so forth to come and do business in Honduras.
Yeah. So, here again, Sean, those doors open to me. I mean, I have access to very high people, and I did it through business. I actually closed down the one business that it started out with. It served its purpose, and it closed down. I closed it down because it was done. But during that time, I made some extremely high-ranking contacts here in Honduras. Things I would never have been able to do as a missionary, right? Mm-hmm. But it was through business that I was able to do that. And so even now, I am actually working with the Honduran government to actually kind of redesign their business residency program and some other parts of the residency program. Now, it's like everything, everybody gets all excited about doing it, and then sometimes it doesn't happen. But we are working on that. And there's legal processes that have to happen. But all of these things were made possible because of that.
Yeah.
Because of business.
Because I remember John Matika, obviously people that's watching the video won't know who he is, the director of HFMM. He did warn us and say, hey, look, you guys are down here on a residency of missionaries, not, to open up a business. If you're opening up businesses and so forth, you need to have the proper visa and so forth. So obviously, you're helping make that channel a little bit more of ease for people that's wanting to come and do work and build businesses in Honduras.
Yeah, the Minister of Investments, that's a cabinet member position. I mean, I meet with him. I mean, he wants to bring investment into Honduras. And I said, if you want to bring investments into Honduras, you got to make it easy for people to get residency. Those just go hand in hand. He's like, well, I never thought about that, So, yeah. So, I mean, it's been a very, very interesting journey, Sean. It's just, I often say I never would have dreamed that a truck driver from Maine would be meeting with a cabinet member in a position in the Honduran government, giving advice, but you take the opportunities that are presented and you go with that.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go back because I know we're going to veer off of our original intent of this video, but I do kind of want to chew on this a little bit because I think you are going to agree with me. We're not trying to divide Hondurans and Americans. We're people and children of God. And I've seen Honduras. I've seen a couple in Tegucigalpa. They started out just selling perfume in the government buildings. And now, it's like 2 years, 3 years later, I went back. They had full blown business. I mean, they had clothing line. They bought their own home. I mean, God bless them beyond measure, So again, we're not going to sit here and discuss, Americans are superior. No, that's not. God's children around the world can allow God to anoint them and give them opportunities to see, opportunities. So what do you think? Why do you think you see it, and maybe another believer in Christ, that God is giving them the talents for business? Why don't they see it? What do you see that you have in your mindset or in your heart that maybe another individual that may have the same opportunities, but they can't see it?
Well, I'm only just going to take a guess at that, Sean. But I think for me, I've always been the type of person that rarely does things the normal way. Okay. And so for me to do things different is kind of me. All right. I think that what happens, and again, there's nothing wrong with this, but I think that for a long time, the church has presented that this is the way we do missions. Okay. Now, I'm really excited to see that that's changing, and that there are some really, really cool things that are happening in missions that are a little more outside of the box. But in general, if you're going to be a missionary, you go around, you raise your support, you go and you do your missions, and that's just the way it's done, right? For me, being someone that has always thought outside of the box and done things differently and hasn't been afraid to do that, I guess it came naturally for me to and then circumstances, the circumstances and the way that we came down here just all led us into this particular direction. So, maybe it's just that people just haven't had their eyes or the idea presented that they could do something differently.
Yeah. Because I think the thing that I focus on as far as the ministry work and stuff is I try to encourage people to see beyond their traditions and culture and to get into the heavenly culture and to allow God to show them that he has a better life for them. And I think sometimes people just have this mindset that, this is the way my dad, has been, my grandfather, and that's, they've never saw opportunity. So I guess I don't see opportunity. So,
right. There's so much that plays into that, Sean. There's so much that plays into that. Our background, our upbringing, there's so much that I think it's hard to pinpoint what it is. But I do think that the more that people talk about different ideas, like what you're doing here, presenting this, that I think that it can make changes. I want to say one other thing. One of the things that we almost never do is give things away. Now, that's not to say that we don't believe in charity
Yeah,
or giving. I mean, through the pandemic, the shutdown, we tried to, especially those people that were kind of under our umbrella of responsibility, we tried to make sure that everybody had food on the table, right? Because as you know, Honduras was shut down, like
sure.
locked up tight for 4 months. It was hard on people. But in a general sense, we don't give things away. I've got an old guy that I think he lives on the streets. He seems very healthy. He's quite old though. But he'll come by and he'll ask for, hey, you got you got 5 limbs or whatever. And I always say, he usually carries a machete. I said, see that patch of grass right over there? Go cut that grass for me and pick up the trash. I'll give you 20 limbs. And at first he was looking at me like, but then he went and did it. And I saw something that changed. When he came back, maybe I was just imagining this, he walked straight than he did when he went over,
Yeah.
because in my opinion, when somebody actually works for something and receives something, money in exchange for that, it gives them the confidence that
Yeah.
they need in themselves, right?
Gives
Because
them dignity.
yeah, it gives them dignity, right? And I felt like, so that's typically what I do. I'll say if somebody comes, they probably need 20 limbs, maybe they haven't eaten that day, but I will try to find something for them to do. Yeah, I don't care if it only takes them 5 minutes, right? I just try to find them something to do.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you too, because I mean, I see you can create bad habits in people's lives, and those bad habits are not healthy. So
Right.
I think, like you said, I mean, when helping hurts, a book, What Helping Hurts, when you read that, I mean, you have to build dignity in people's lives. And a lot of people in poverty, they'll tell you straight out, we don't want a handout. We want an opportunity,
And
and it's demoralizing.
most Hondurans, that's what they want. That's why they make that journey to the United States, a very difficult, dangerous journey. But they go because they want the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that most people, that's what they want. Sean, I want to mention one other thing. I don't know if you know, and I hope he doesn't mind if I use his name on here, but Daniel Melton,
No.
up in San Luis. Okay. He is one of the few missionaries that I've seen that actually does business very well. And they are supported, so I don't think he uses that money. He just uses that to help run their clinic, and the money just goes back into into their ministry, which is great, right?
Mhm.
But he is actually has about 3 different businesses up there that are actually producing jobs and income.
Mhm.
Uh, One of them is a little water bottling company. They drilled a well and they started bottling water.
Wow.
And yeah, they're one of the only like distributor in the area. So it's it does well. I think it gives about 5 guys jobs. They have a little chicken, I like egg business, and they have a pizza. They have a pizza parlor.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's, when I watched him, I realized that, I mean, he's doing business very well. He's sharp. But he still does his ministry, and he's still supported. He's just chosen to use business as a different avenue to support some of the work that they do.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the whole point of this Zoom call is just basically encourage other people to realize that there's possibly an opportunity for them to look at business as an avenue, and don't put missions in a box. Missions, can be, and I'm finding this out in all the interviews I'm doing. Missions is just so vast; it's
Right.
unbelievable. And
True.
you really just need to allow God to lead and guide you, and don't be embarrassed to actually come to admit, well, maybe I'm going to do business as an angle for mission work. Because again, it can be embarrassing in the sense, I'm not saying you should be embarrassed. I'm just saying that you're so conditioned thinking, okay, I got to go raise support. This is the way to do missions. I'm going to do missions only this way. And really, if I try to do a business, what are people going to think? Maybe they won't like that. Maybe they won't want to be a part of my ministry that I'm doing. So then they're fearful of actually reaching out and doing that. But in their heart, God's actually leading them to do that. So
Yeah, Sean, I don't know how much more time we have, but I would like to address that. And I do talk with people when I do counseling with them on business. I talk with them about how to work through that because, and I'll just be honest, when we first came down here and then we decided to go into business, I was kind of embarrassed.
Mhm.
And I had a number of people who often say, well, we're living by faith. I mean, that's what they would tell me. Well, we're
You're
living
living by faith too.
well, I thought maybe I wasn't,
I think it takes faith to run a business.
I was like, okay, but that's just people's reaction, and a lot of times it just comes from being like, like this is the way we've been have always thought. But I only say that because there's a good chance that, as you mentioned, that people will find people's reactions to be not what they expected, right? And that's where you just have to say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And if God's okay with it, then everybody else is going to have to be also.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to, and we can close with this, is I teach people to follow the peace. Peace is a green light, and animosity, fear, doubt, frustration, anxiety, that is a stoplight. That's like, stop, but if you have total peace and it feels like it's just flowing, it feels right, follow it.
Yeah.
Follow it. And that's what happened to me when I tried to do businesses. Is I just got animosity. It didn't feel good. I felt like I wasn't, I just did not feel right. And I didn't look forward to waking up. I didn't look forward to starting a new day. Now, I love it. I love waking up. I can't wait to dig back into the work that I left the night before. That's my peace. And that's what you did. You followed your peace. And that's really what I'm trying to encourage anybody that's listening. Follow the peace. The peace is the green light. So, well, Mike, I really appreciate this. This is awesome. I know that, there's going to be somebody that's going to watch this video and say, wow, I needed this. And I think you're going to bless many people that's going to watch this video. So God bless you, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that too. And I just want to throw out there, I'll just throw it out there. If anybody would like to talk on a personal level more about that, you're welcome to give out my name and an email address. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. So
I'll do that. I'll put it in the descriptions of this video, your email address.
All right. Thank you,
God
Sean.
bless you, brother. It's good to see you again.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.